We are getting closer and closer to Roland Garros, and I just can't help feeling really excited about the tournaments that's leading up to the French Open. Obviously, in today's episode, I'm going to talk about Madrid, but as well as Rome and just some smaller tournaments that I think will really show how just there's different players who maybe we didn't suspect that's going to win French Open. They might make a statement and make us think that they could be potential candidates to go far in French Open. It's just like how Madison Keys, I don't think anyone expected her to win Australia. However, after her performance in the tournaments before Australia, I think a lot of people expected her to go pretty far, and she ended up winning the title. So I think these tournaments are really telltale sign about what's going to happen in French Open. Welcome, tennis fans, to Tennis Traverse, exploring the game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host, Ivy Zhang, and in today's episode, I will be talking about the Madrid Open. But before I start, I do want to make an announcement that I said last time that I'm going to start doing 2 weeks episodes starting from May 19th. However, when I checked, I realized that French Open starts on May 20th. So I feel like the episode on May 19th is going to be really important because I can preview the entire tournament. So I will be recording a week episode on May 19th, and I also will just be recording the week episode on the week after May 19th. So that I think would be May 26th. So I'll be posting both of those two episodes just because we have a Grand Slam going on, and as I said in the last episode, when we have a Grand Slam, I'll still stick to my weekly upload schedule. But after the 26th, I'm going to start doing a 2-week thing. So after the finals, I'm not going to come up immediately with an episode. I'm going to sort of come up with an episode 2 weeks after that. I'm going to make it longer at the same time. And I'm going to talk about how the final is, what I thought about the final, as well as just the aftermath. But it's going to go more in depth, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. So yeah, but that's all for the announcements for today, and let's just get right into today's episode. So let's just start off with the women's side and just talk about some matches that I think are really meaningful. So let's start with the first round. For the first round, I think this tournament is really interesting because it just starts randomly on a Tuesday, which is a little bit surprising to me, but I do want to talk about Naomi Osaka's loss to Bronzetti because the match was really just, I don't know how to describe it. I watched the first 2 sets, and I feel like obviously she played really great on clay last year, especially in the French Open where she almost took Iga out, but I think especially for some players like Naomi, maybe she expected herself to go really far early in this tournament, but because it's still her first clay court tournament, it's just really different for her, and I think she's a player that really needs to get practices playing with each other before sort of just hitting into form. She needs to practice before getting into form with the other practice tournaments, and that's also how why these practice tournaments exist. And I think even though she lost, she can still take away some of it, and she said that she's going to live in the moment, and I can't wait to see her performance in Rome. But yeah, and then some other round of the first round matches. I also want to talk about the match between Bianca Andreescu and Kessler. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this match is because Kessler has been playing great. I feel like she's been playing in a great form, but Bianca, obviously, she hasn't played in such a long time, and for her to come back to beat McCarthy Kessler in a pretty straightforward manner is pretty interesting because obviously Kessler isn't that strong on clay, but she had an amazing hardcourt swing before this. And I think Bianca also isn't known for her strength on clay, but I don't I can't tell if she has a really severe like weakness, because I think like on any surface, I think she's a pretty well-rounded player and she's good on all surfaces. So this result, however, still like surprised me a little, just because Bianca Andreescu lost in the tournament before this in the Open de Rune against Susan Lamons, which was pretty a tough match, and for her to just step up her level in Madrid is pretty interesting, and I can't wait to see how she does later on. I think just she needs these tournaments to get her back in form. And then other round of 128 matches, I don't know if I want to talk about more. I think a lot of them are just pretty straightforward wins by players. There isn't that many like surprising upsets that took place. So let's just move on to round of 64. I do want to talk about the match between Sviatova and Jelena Ostapenko. So why I wanted to talk about this is because Ostapenko drew Iga on the same side again for this tournament, and if Ostapenko would have won this match and moved forward and just happened to move in the fourth round, Iga as well, they're going to face each other. And I mean, I just can't wait for an Iga and Ostapenko rematch. I just hope that Iga, like, it's just really funny to me, and whenever they meet again, I always expect it to be a dramatic yet interesting match, and I think this is what we were gonna get, but Ostapenko lost in the second round. However, I think it was pretty, like, I wouldn't read too much into it, because Ostapenko is known for just, like, having performance peaks and just having not so good performances. Like, it's really hard for her, especially with her hitting style, which is just literally just hit the ball with as much power as she can and hope it lands on the lines. It's really hard for her to like get consecutively good weeks, because she is a Roland Garros title winner, and that was when like something goes really well for 2 weeks, but that's, I think, a rare occurrence for her nowadays. And then I also want to talk about the match between Alexandra Yala versus Iga Swiatek. So this was sort of like a revenge for Iga, just because she played against Yala early. I think they played in Miami, where Yala just pretty much directed the ball so good that, like, for example, I expected her to hit one area of the court. She's going to go the complete opposite way, and I think that's also what sort of caught Iga off guard. And with that, I mean, that much to say, Yala just completely beat Iga in Miami. But when it comes to Iga's favorite court, the clay court, Iga, even though she lost the first set, she still managed to come back, and I think that's something that's really special for her, because if it was on a hard court, maybe Iga would have lost, but because she has so much confidence, I think, in her game on the clay court, it just sort of translated, like, her confidence translated to her playing style, and clay just suits her playing style so good that she managed to come back and win this match. Also, I'll leave a link to all of these matches so you guys can watch the highlights. And then I want to talk about some second round matches. So I also want to talk about the match between Raducanu and Marta Kostyuk. So I feel like 2 years ago, Kostyuk had one of her, or was it last year? I don't remember, but she had one of her best seasons yet. I think she made it to the final, where she made it really far in either Miami or Indian Wells. But I feel like we haven't heard from her in a long time, and for her to beat Emma Raducanu in a pretty convincing manner, I would say, even though it was a 3-set match. And part of it, I think, is Emma obviously just lacking practice from play matches. Obviously, she's been entering a lot more tournaments than she used to be, but I think she still needs to practice, especially on clay. Sort of similar tone with Naomi, that they both are players that need to play into their form. So I feel like she can also take away some positives out of this. However, I think the one player that should be kind of concerned is Qinwen, because she lost in the round of 64 against Anastasia Potapova. And although Potapova is one of those players sort of similar to Ostapenko that just hits the ball really hard and hope it lands on the lines, and when she's on, she's on, Qinwen is a gold medal winner on clay. And I think that's something she really needs to remember. And obviously, there's probably a lot of pressure on her to compete well and do well just because she is a gold medal champion on clay. But I think she also needs more practice, and obviously this isn't ideal for her, but at least she has more tournaments coming up before the Roland Garros to maybe just gain some more confidence, because I know this is probably a pretty devastating blow on her. Now I want to talk, that's basically all for the women's matches. We're still on a round of 32, but there haven't been much that I want to cover. I think they're all pretty straightforward. There was a win between Madison Keys and Kalinskaya where Madison won in 2 straight sets, and she was down like 1-4, I believe, in the second, and she came back. So that was pretty good. But I guess that's probably it for the women's side. We'll take a break and we'll move on to the men's side. Okay, so for the men's side, they're still playing their second round matches, so there obviously isn't that much compared to the women's side because they used their Tuesday entire day for their qualifiers and they started on Wednesday. So it's really weird. I don't get how tournaments are starting on Tuesday and Wednesday nowadays. Like, I like a Monday start better, but yeah. So I want to talk obviously about some interesting matches in the first round, and I guess I'll start off with Joao Fonseca, who beat Elmer Muller 6-2, 6-3. The reason why I want to talk about this is I just want to highlight Fonseca's ability to play on all surfaces. I think he's just such a well-rounded player that he's able to play on all surfaces. And yeah, I mean, not that much to say. I think he's someone you should look at going into Roland Garros. I think he's going to make a statement in Roland Garros. I saw someone predicting him jokingly that he's going to be the French Open champion. And obviously, if you think about it, like once you hear it, you're like, how is that possible? But if you really think about it, this year's French Open is so open, if that makes any sense. Like, I really can't think of anyone from the top of my head that might win this tournament. And I've said this many times before, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see who gets the title because everyone has something going on, and I think a lot of players, such as Joao Fonseca, have a chance to just seize this opportunity because I think this is a great opportunity for players like him to come up and step up. So yeah. Okay. Now I want to talk about round of 64 matches. I want to talk about let's talk about Cerundolo beating Felix Auger-Aliassime. I don't know why, but Felix has just not been doing well at all. He had 4 consecutive losses. He lost in Miami to Musetti in the round of 32. He lost to Daniel Altmaier in Monte Carlo, and in BMW Open he lost to Mariano Navone. Yesterday he lost to Cerundolo. Obviously Cerundolo is a great clay court player, and so is Navone. But however, I think this is really different because he lost 4 in a row now, and I think a lot of people go in and expected him to do pretty well just because he's pretty good on clay, and I think a lot of people expected him. He's been really quiet because of injuries to just come back maybe and do good, but he's not been meeting our expectations at all. And I also want to talk about Alcaraz, who withdrew from this tournament. I mean, you could clearly tell that he was injured in you could clearly tell that Carlos Alcaraz was injured when he played against Roger Rune in Barcelona. So I think this is actually a wise decision. I'm really glad he made this decision because I think playing more would just only make his injury worse, and he obviously doesn't want that going into Roland Garros. So good for him for just listening to his body and withdrawing. And then I want to talk about, I think that's basically it, I guess, because there's not that much to talk about, because a lot of entertaining matches are happening in round 2 because the top seeds have bye the first round. But yeah, okay, the last match I guess I want to talk about is between Novak Djokovic and Arnaldi, I think. Yeah, it's between Djokovic and Arnaldi. So why I want to talk about this is because it was really interesting that Djokovic just is not finding his form. I don't know what's wrong. I think part of it, I just don't think the pressure is going to get to him. Like the 100 title, obviously he's going to feel some pressure, but come on, he's Novak Djokovic. Like, he's used to feeling the expectations on him. But I think he really needs to get his form together in order for him to just like get a big title on clay. I know his goal is probably to get the title in French Open, but I think just to get like a deep run in Rome and get a deep run in Madrid, which obviously can't happen now, are both like great opportunities to see how he stands, even to just like play against a player that might have a chance, like, I don't know, like just to play against a player like Zverev, or just play against a player even like Arthur Fils. I think will tell him how he stands against these players before French Open, so he's not going into Paris blind. And because now he doesn't know how he compares. He's losing to players like Arnaldi, who I don't think have a chance of winning Paris, but he obviously, Djokovic, wants to get that title. So I think he really needs to just lock in and hopefully go deeper so he can meet better players, or just players who are more of a title contender in Paris. But yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about today. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't followed me on social medias, you should. It's at Tennis Traverse. That is at Tennis Traverse on Instagram and Twitter. And if you're listening on YouTube, please comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And that's all. Thank you so much for listening. And I can't wait to see you guys next week. Bye.